man, I love those buff dudes. Like, it's so great following them. They have this new podcast.
Now there's another buff dude in the room.
Allowing boredom to happen so that their creative side can come out.
I think there's a specific mindset of a leader that will thrive during this season and a specific mindset of a leader that's going to kind of get left behind.
If you're just all in all the time, driving,
I'm thankful that I have this, and this is beautiful that I have this. Of course, I'm hungry for more, but I'm so thankful that this is even something that's been given to me. I know nothing about what you do for your career, for hobbies, for just you as a person. So imagine, put me in the audience perspective, who they follow Jay and Andy, and they're like, man, I love those buff dudes. Like, it's so great following them. They have this new podcast.
Now there's another buff dude in the room.
Yeah, now there's another buff dude. And I'd love to just if they like this guy, why should I like this guy? So tell me your ChatGPT version of who you are and what you stand for, what you do for your career, just things that you love in life. Let's hear it.
Yeah. So Jared Kredit, born and raised in the Phoenix, Arizona area. Super important part of my life is my faith and my family. So I'll touch on those. Faith for me, as it is probably for many, lifelong journey, but follower of Christ. And that plays into a lot of what I do and who I am, forms a lot of how I at least try to show up in the world. Family, in particular, my wife, Natalie, we've been married for coming up on 17 years. We've got 3 beautiful children, Asher, Stella, and Tessa, and they're all elementary to middle school age. So we're running hard all the time. But staying present with them is a big part of who I am and what I try to do. And that is challenging at times. So I own and operate K2 Electric. We're a industrial and commercial electrical contractor. So primarily we work with general contractors, either building new or renovating facilities in the industrial and commercial space, and lead a team. Right now we're a little under 300 folks. We operate throughout the state, and focused really right now, a lot of manufacturing coming into town, a lot of data centers, which that's been in place, but that's accelerating with the AI boom. And really Arizona's a great spot. We've got chip manufacturing. We kind of have the whole life cycle of all the new tech going on. And so that's been a welcome transition for our industry, kind of a 20 plus year transition for Arizona in getting into advanced manufacturing, just more sophisticated construction builds, and great for ultimately our population. Those industries serve the population better in terms of employment opportunities. So really excited for that opportunity and just the team that I get to lead, and, trying to move forward in kind of a wild time, both specifically to our industry, but businesses as a whole. AI, obviously everybody's talking about that, but our industry is probably one of the least innovative. If you look over the last, 100 years or so, we actually have lost efficiency as an industry. Like most industries have this crazy curve of efficiency gain. And, we've had some, and then I think it's probably in the last 10 years, the data shows that we've regressed a little bit, and ultimately it's the way projects get built. There's some kind of structural problems that are really tough to solve that no one's really figured out. And then there's a lot of push to get folks into college, and that pulled good people away from the trades, and the ones that are experienced, they're retiring out. And so we just, as an industry, we haven't really solved that. So it's kind of an interesting time, and just gives us some good stuff to work on.
I think a lot about how things are changing in culture, but also in the workplace with people that I work with, and our conversations in different industries. And one of the things that I think about is the type of leaders that will emerge during this time, that I think there's a specific mindset of a leader that will thrive during this season, and a specific mindset of a leader that's going to kind of get left behind. So as you think about that for your team, what mindset have you decided to kind of take on to lead your company through this season of innovation and change? And what are some of those qualities that you found are things that are really significant for you?
Yeah, I think the big thing for me, and I feel fortunate that I feel like behaviorally kind of how I show up in the world, but being adaptable. I think being adaptable is incredibly important. It's always has been, but it's even more so. And it's not just adapting to the technology and the change, like in terms of being an early adopter, but right now we're doing some adaptation where we were pursuing some things and weren't having success. So it's like, hey, even within this this progress we know we need to make, the original plan wasn't quite working. We need to make some adjustments. So as you're moving forward, it's also constantly assessing, hey, is this working? What pivots do we need to make? So I think adaptability is probably one of the most important tactically leadership attributes. There's a lot in terms of how you connect and work with humans relationally, but tactically, I think adaptability.
I remember when we worked out a couple of weeks ago and we were sitting in the sauna and we were talking about this conversation around the importance of flexibility moving forward with just human beings. And I think now the feeling I get often is there's so much change and adaptation that's taking place that it's hard to even think about where to start and what to focus on. And I think you made a good point that I think there's an opportunity for leaders to not have to change who they are to move forward, but to figure out how their personality and their unique gifts can kind of move them through this season. I think flexibility is one of those opportunities. And if you're a leader that likes things, structured and ordered and, there's a plan attached to it, I think it does require a lot of stepping back and going, okay, how do I either do it myself, be more flexible, or find people that I can partner with who are better at some of those skill sets?
Totally.
I want to back up for a minute here because your current career path sounds fascinating. But as a kid, when you're young and you're like, I want to be a firefighter when I grow up. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be an actor. I have a feeling that your current career is not what you said as a kid.
Correct.
So my question for you is, one, when you were a kid, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Bodybuilder, for sure.
And then after that, how did you even fall into something like this?
Yeah. So I'm sure I had a few different thoughts when I was a child, but the one that I can remember the best, because this is what I started my college career on this path, was I wanted to be a doctor. Always loved the sciences in school, found it really interesting. And still today, I love helping people solve problems. And so, marrying that interest in science with helping people, had a great pediatrician growing up, and I was like, I want to do that. I went to the University of Arizona, fantastic school for medicine. So, that all made sense. It's also a really fun environment. And so quickly I realized I did enjoy science, but there were people that were way smarter than me. And I wanted to have, a mix of study and fun at university. And so pivoted away from that. So how I got into this, so my father, he got into the trades pretty much right out of high school, eventually started a business, ran that for a while, sold it. And then when I was starting college, he started up K2 Electric, so his second business in the same space. And for the longest time, he was, don't get into the trades, go to college. He hadn't gone to college, so he felt like that was, just the path to a better opportunity. But as he was getting the business started, I just saw a lot of opportunity, and he always really liked the trade side of it, specifically the problems we solve for customers. He liked digging into that, and I have some experience in that, but not to the level that he did. And I was going to business school, and so I thought, okay, I think this could be a good partnership. He really likes focusing on solving electrical problems for clients, and I'm really interested in how do we make this business operate and make it more scalable. So roughly halfway through college, I decided that I was going to join full time, because I would work part time. It was kind of a precondition of being able to come back home and have a place to sleep, was I would go work out in the field, but then joined full time in 2008 when I graduated.
Usually there's like a thread of that childhood desire that's still in it, you know? Do you see that thread in your career?
Probably being able to help people, help solve problems, right? It like comes with that. And for me, less so at the project level, but within our team. And so especially as I got into roles of leadership, I think that was really strong there. I guess another thread would be I like to operate independently. And so this is less about specifically what we do as a business, but just being a business owner, being a business leader. Every day's different and an adventure. Adventure is a super important thing to me. And entrepreneurship is definitely an adventure. So I think that's there. And then something I didn't actually really recognize when I was younger, but I see it today. Fixing actual things. Like my dad was super handy, and so I was always around that. And so whether it's something at home or seeing our teams execute on it, but like all of that, like, and especially the tangible nature of what we do is super fun I love being able to go around town and you're like, especially the kids in the car, it's like, hey, our team built that. There's something really neat about that.
There's something really interesting about, like you said, that tangible aspect of it, or that, everything is so digital right now. But like you said, if you can just drive down the road with your kids and point like, hey, I had a hand in that. There's something really special about that. And I feel like with AI, with technology, with trying to achieve efficiency, a lot of the tangible human element is just kind of being, I don't want to say stripped away from us, but it's just like less and less human touch to things and more automation and more efficiency. For you, how do you see a way with your kids, especially, that you can help them? Because I'm working with this with my kids. How can you help them hold on to that tangible thing of working with your hands, or working with something that there's a physical product of not even a product, but physical deliverable or physical attribute with something, or something that is not just throw it in chat GPT, get it done, let automation, this AI agent get it done, or stepping away from a computer and just being peer to peer with somebody. How do you help instill that with your kids?
Yeah, that's something I would say I'm like early stage working on. My oldest is 13.
That's almost 13 too.
Yeah. So I think, well, and I'll go to the younger, I think encouraging play is super, super important. Technology it's everywhere. Even just basic things like TV, right? So trying to limit time in front of a screen, and allowing boredom to happen so that their creative side can come out, and eventually that creates play. I think so, the creativity part of it, but there's a lot too around just the human connection. Ultimately, developmentally is super important. We learn boundaries when we're playing. Like I go, I roughhouse too hard, and it's like, oh, that person didn't like that. Like you learn a lot in that, but it's also just, it's fulfilling. My 7-year-old is more than my other 2 kids, loves to play. So one thing that I've been really focused on being better about is trying not to decline that. So wish I could say that I was always great about that. I wasn't, but trying to be better about, if it's like, Dad, can we wrestle, or can we, shoot hoops, or whatever the kids want to do, trying to step into play. And if it's like, hey, not right at this moment, making sure that it still happens. So I think when they're really young, moving them away from screens and into physical play, building things, Legos, whatever. But then I think also, as we get into things that are harder to quantify, like what did I actually do? Some of that is like self-reflection. And so starting to talk with my son and starting to work on some stuff as he's transitioning from boyhood to manhood, encouraging just self-reflection, whether that's journaling or however you do that. I think journaling is hugely advantageous. And this is like still something I'm working on getting good at, because as a leader, oftentimes I can go long stretches and I'm like, I know I'm doing things, but like I'm not really feeling the satisfaction out of it. And until I sit down and I really start writing, then I can be like, oh, okay, like I saw this person I was coaching them and they made meaningful progress, and that feels rewarding. Or this area of the business, it was here and now we've improved it. But those things that take a long time, if you don't stop and reflect, because you're not getting that like immediate, like when we build a building, it's like, it's done, it's built, I can see it. So I think those things, and then I'm a big fan of physical fitness because I think it's good for us mentally, but that for me is one way. It's like something that I can very much control, and I just love it. So that's good, but it's also like an accomplishment, and I can get a lot more immediate feedback on like, is this working?
Play is very, to me, very different than the outcomes that you're talking about. And I've thought a lot about this around what it means to actually play. Because two of the things you described, the projects, but also the fitness, there is an end goal attached to that. There's an outcome. And I think about with play, that's something that we often lose very quickly when we get into a professional role or a life of responsibilities. We recognize that we have to maintain a certain rhythm to life to have outcomes occur. But play, there's often no outcome attached to it. And I think sometimes with kids, we force them out of play into winning a game, winning or losing, a goal or objective on the outside of that. And I think play, to me, is just as important to be able to go into something and just dabble with an immense amount of curiosity and discovery, and not even having to answer the question, why am I doing this, or what do I need to get out of this? And that's a totally different mindset. And I see that with my 5-year-old, especially. He just wants to sit down and just go into his world and not have any outcomes attached to it. In fact, when I start to create order in his world, when I'm like, well, this person does this, he's like, no, Daddy, it doesn't work that way. And he kind of messes it all up again. And I do think there is a level of freedom that comes with that kind of play. And we were talking about this idea of contentment, and I'd love for you to share a little bit about that. But the ability to play, there's a certain settling that has to happen in our hearts around, what do I have undone? What do I need to get done? Am I enough? Am I doing enough? This frenetic energy. And I'd love for you to talk about how you came to this idea of contentment for your year, and maybe how that ties into this concept of just play.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and the word of the year concept is new for me. As an organization, we've done it for a few years, and my wife, so she works at K2, and one of her responsibilities is kind of culture-based initiatives, and especially as we're growing, making sure that we're maintaining kind of that family values-based feel that has always been there, but maintaining it as we're growing. So word of the year is a concept that she's brought in, and it's something she's personally done. And so she challenged me this year. And at first I was a little hesitant, but I was like, all right, I like the idea. And what I loved about it more than anything was the thought exercise to get into it. And talking about AI, I used ChatGPT to build me like basically a journaling prompt, and just a series of questions that I went through. And so that in and of itself was very helpful, just like checking myself, where am I at in life. But why I picked contentment is we in 2003, beginning of 2003, we started what we're calling Lean Journey. And so this process in the organization to do a lot of things, but one of them was really pushing heavy into prefabrication, which has been around in our industry for a bit, but it's still, I would say, isn't as utilized as it potentially could be. And so we wanted to make a push down that through this Lean Journey. And then we had quite a bit of growth at the same time. And so it really strained the organization from 2003 really even to today, but we're kind of settling in. And I found myself just so often just chasing, like, what do I need to do next? And constantly putting pressure on myself that it's not good enough. And I've got to do more, or I've got to push people to do more. And the reality is like in that time period, we had some good growth. We've added some great people to the team. We've improved some processes and systems. Like a lot of good things have happened, but I had no real deep sense of that. And I was just frustrated that like time is passing by, and it was bleeding over into really all domains of life for me. And so I just had this like discontentment. And so that was problematic for me for two reasons. One, I tend to be a fairly positive, optimistic personality type. And so like I felt like I was kind of changing at my core, and I didn't like that. But I also realized that like there's an attitude and a choice that I have in this, and I wasn't making the right choice of how I view these things. And so it's kind of like this macro thing, but also like at the daily level, like I was tired of having a rough day, and then that impacts the, how I show up at home, and some of what I was talking about with like playing with the kids and saying no, because it's like there's always something more to do. And so that's part of my intent as I go into this year, is being able to, be content with however the day went, but be content with the work day is done. Now I'm going to spend time with my kids or my wife. And so just being intentional with that, because as I was thinking more and more about it, I'm like, I'm not going to find contentment unless I seek contentment, and naming it as a word of the year. And I put it out on LinkedIn. So now it's, even more, it's public. I got some accountability to it. And so, and a lot of that ultimately ties back to faith for me, because my discontent is usually like self-centered in what should I be doing and how can I do better, as opposed to seeing myself in a bigger picture in God's plan, and where do I fit as a leader, and accepting and being good enough in my role as a leader, as a friend, as a father. So, and a husband, more work always to be doing on that, but also being able to just stop and say, okay, I did well.
Yeah, I think for me, that really hits me kind of hard, because as self-employed, entrepreneur, I don't have a staff of people. So I was talking to Andy when we were setting everything up today, like there's just so many things that I have to do to complete my job in a day, and there's never enough time. And then I have to decide where my life is going to suffer a little bit. And unfortunately, I end up choosing work a lot. I end up working a little bit later. I'm on my phone a little bit more, answering emails at like 9 o'clock at night when my daughter's like, Dad, I'm trying to show you something, and it's just like, I don't give myself permission, because I feel this immense responsibility. But at the same time, like Andy was telling me, like people are usually pretty understanding to not get a response right away. And if you wait 48 hours, more than likely things are going to be just fine. And like, I know for me, like I need to get that mindset of feeling that content of like the day it's, whatever time I decide to sign off, the day is done. I have been working on it a little bit more with my kids, where, I do work from home. I have an office. They come home from school. They all come in and see me. And just yesterday, my youngest came in and he's like, Dad, can you read this to me? I want to read this with you. And it's like it's a little action Bible. And usually I would say, hey, sorry, but I'm working right now. But I decided, you know what? I'm sure, why not? And I recently saw Matthew McConaughey, the GOAT, talk about, somebody asked him, like, to you, what does like fatherhood mean? And he's like, well, there's a whole lot of answers to that. That's such a broad question. But he's like, for me, it means time. And I was like, dang it. That's so true, And it's like, I know that if I can just give my kids time, it's going to immensely impact them, more than a nice conversation of, giving, fatherly advice. But they'll see like, Dad consistently showed up for me. Dad was consistently there regardless of how tired or exhausted he was or whatever. And I'm really trying to focus on that,
There was, when I was in my master's program for marriage and family therapy, we were talking about, how to create healthy families and what helps children flourish. And I remember there were four words that I really tried to grab hold of when I think about my relationship with my kids. And it's the acronym TAAD, T-A-A-D. It's time, attention, affection, and direction. And really just coming down to the reality that those are the four most fundamental things that I can be to my kids. I can give them my time. I can give them my affection, my attention, which is different than time. It is attunement. It is watching them and seeing them, not being in the same room with them and on my phone. It's being present with them. And then direction, of not just letting their life go in places, but step in and coach and model and direct. And with your idea of contentment, I do think a lot of people associate contentment with not working hard. I know that conversations I've had with professional athletes, and we use the term contentment, and they have a repulsion to that term, because in their mind, the moment they stop pushing to be better is the moment they get traded, they fall behind. And that's a massive threat to them, because they can get cut from a team. They can get, business leaders have a little bit more security and margin. Athletes, not so much. It's a measure of your numbers in the games. But contentment, to me, it's not that you stop working hard. It's that you have a peace on the inside about who you are, that you are enough, and that I am enough. I do enough, and I am enough. And what that has given me, because I've had to do a lot of work in this area over the last 5 to 10 years, it actually gives me more of a passion and freedom to work hard and to pursue things, but not to try to achieve a sense of peace or a sense of worth, but to do it from a place of joy and satisfaction and excitement. And I think that's something that, I think about your kids, that they probably really want to see from their father, that all of our kids want to see from their fathers and mothers, is this peace that's on the inside, that we're not chasing our worth or significance, that we do feel content. And when they see that, it's almost a gift to them, and let them know that I'm okay, and it's okay for you to be okay. I'm good enough, and you're good enough. And it is a gift to kids to slow down. But I do think people fear contentment because they have to perform. So how do you guys balance this state of, I want to be at peace, I want to know I'm enough, but I also am hungry, I want to fight?
Yeah, I think really focusing on this is, fairly fresh for me. Not that I haven't thought about the idea of contentment before, but I don't personally associate, I can see where people do, but I don't personally associate it with necessarily doing less. Although I think through the awareness of pursuing it, that may be part of the outcome, right? There could be areas where it's like, hey, this actually is not time well spent. But for me, it's what you said, it's getting that inner peace. And so it's more of an internal process and dialogue of reflecting on what I've done and assuming that my efforts were well-intentioned and good energy put out. Like, hey, that's good enough, and not good enough like I'm stopping, but that's good enough for this moment. And so now I can try to get that in other domains, right? Like, because I think that for business leaders in particular, and probably athletes, it's that constant pursuit of that one thing, then and never being, again, not stopping the pursuit, but just never being satisfied. Then just you're doubling, tripling down, and now it's relationships primarily around you that are not a part of that and part of that objective. Now they're suffering, and that actually then creates this like feedback, this kind of loop, right? Of now I'm gonna be more discontented because I'm seeing challenges at home or in friendships, relationship breakdown, because it's like I'm so discontent in this professional pursuit that it's going to bring about discontentment elsewhere, because I'm going to fracture relationships.
I think with that idea that you're sharing of contentment is, I think there needs to be a lot of gratitude up front. I think having that gratitude of like, it's not like, oh, this is enough and great. It's more like, I'm thankful that I have this, and this is beautiful that I have this. Of course, I'm hungry for more, but I'm so thankful that this is even something that's been given to me, or that I've worked hard for and achieved. And I think sometimes, I know friends have told me that it's hard for them to find that mindset, because they're worried if they feel that feeling of contentment, then it's going to kill their drive. It's going to be like, this is enough, I don't need to try anymore. And I don't think that's what it is. I think it's just a level of gratitude mixed with drive, that I'm so thankful for this, and I can't wait to see what else is in store.
And this is housed in a whole conversation around for people who are hungry. Like, I'm a very hungry person. I like to push myself physically, mentally, emotionally, relationally. I'm a very driven person. And that's where a lot of my worth early on was derived, was my ability to perform at high capacities. And when I did that, I almost guaranteed that people would want to be around me and be close to me. People who don't perform and don't do well and have a lot of problems, who really wants to be around those types of people? So I had it in my head that, like, if I can perform at a high capacity, I'm going to gather people's attention to me. And I had to do a lot of identity work around that. But even more important now with AI, because however fast you think you are at something, however smart you think you are, however efficient you think you are, there is tools and products and humanoid robots and other things that will be and is better than you at every one of these capacities. So it makes me step back and ask the question, should I really be focusing my energy on how fast I am, how smart I am, how skilled I am, or should I focus on the things that make me inherently human, which is my capacity to gain wisdom over a long period of time, to be able to be present with people that I love, to be able to be creative, to be able to tap into my emotion? Because I do think those are some of the greatest skills moving forward for leaders, is the ability to know your purpose and your passion, to approach life with curiosity, and as a leader to really draw out the purpose and passion of other people. Because even though roles are not falling off right now, even though jobs aren't falling off very strongly, the roles inside of those jobs are starting to vaporize. So you might have a role as a video producer or as a coach or as a computer programmer, and you might still hold that title, but the roles and the things you're doing inside of that are starting to vaporize. So I think we do have to ask different questions. Instead of like, how do I speed up and be faster? It's how do I stay more whole, more grounded, and more connected to the things that really matter most.
Yeah, totally. And I think, contentment, a lot of what we're talking about is a healthier place to be mentally. And when we're in a healthier headspace, adaptability, flexibility, right? We're gonna have better awareness. If you're just all in all the time, driving, some of what you're talking about, like roles are transforming and the way businesses operate is transforming, you're gonna miss that, and you're actually gonna increase the likelihood that you get kind of skipped over, or you get behind because you're just so focused on that. Whereas I think if you can step back, find peace, have reflection, find contentment, that also creates that ability to kind of look around occasionally and go, all right, what's shifting? What do I need to be paying attention to?
Which is a very open perspective. And when we're in fight, flight, or freeze, one thing that happens in our brain, I taught this sports psychology class in undergrad. And I remember one of the key concepts I remembered is you never want your vision to be too tight and you never want it to be too wide. So when you're playing in the NFL, you want your vision focused, but not too tight because you need to be able to see what's around you. But you also don't want it so wide that you don't know where you're kind of targeting your energy. And I think there's a sweet spot. It can't be too myopic and it can't be too broad, where we can't get too loose and flexible. We have to stay focused. But if we get too close to the problem, I think each of us know this, when we get too close to the problem, we lose sight of the bigger picture. And I think it's this fluid process of zooming in and zooming out, of getting close, stepping back, getting close and stepping back. And that ability, like what you talked about with flexibility and adaptability, I think that's going to be a massive skill, but that requires a certain level of emotional stability and peace inside. What other concepts or ideas do you feel are meaningful to you, or Jay, that you think we could pull out?
Health and fitness, super important. And I think that, like to the level that I do it, not necessarily, but like just that's really meaningful for our bodies. And especially in a time where we're getting disconnected from relationship, technology is doing a lot of that. I think the physical reset that comes from fitness and other healthy habits. And then something that, this is more pertinent to my industry, but leadership. We're really working hard on kind of the soft skill stuff around leadership, and really taking it on as something that we need to teach and train our team. And I think that that's partly because of the industry, but it's also where the world is going, because that is like the EQ stuff. So,
Well, okay. So I, it's hard to keep up with technology right now because it is changing so fast, and where it goes this direction, the next day it might go this direction. And there's predictions and all that kind of stuff. And then there's scare tactics about jobs and like where do humans even have a place. And one thing, I can't remember where I heard it, but it was, you have a warehouse of people and you teach one person how to do something. They have to teach the next person and the next person. That takes time, right?
Mm.
But let's replace the people with robots. You teach one robot to do something, all the other robots instantly know how to do it.
Right.
So for you, when you're a leader right now and you have the capability of automations with some things, why focus on teaching somebody when it takes longer? Why focus on being a leader to really kind of empower one person and then stepping back and then doing it to another person? Because that's not necessarily the most efficient way, but it might be the most effective way to get work done the way that you kind of envision it as a leader.
Yeah. No, that's a good question. A good topic too. Because I think like what you're talking about, the robot's going to do is like kind of a purely tactical thing. Yeah. So I think what the robot can do is going to be very tactical, but the robot's not going to, well, I shouldn't say it's not going to interact with other human beings in the same way that humans could. So I think so it's not just that you lean into one person and maybe there's some inefficiency there, but it's like, what are you leaning into them with? So less and less, it's going to be like teaching them a skill of how to, in your warehouse scenario, they're manufacturing something. It's less of like, how do you work the line? And it's more of the EQ type of things, like how do you communicate well? How do you have hard conversations? That's something that we're really investing a lot in our organization. And that's been a mindset shift for me. I for a lot of my life thought of leaders as being, born, like people just have those. And I think people have some behavioral attributes that they've got good stage presence or things like that, right? Confidence. And even that's not really behavioral. It's probably shaping that happened when they were younger. But now believe that everyone can be taught these things. And that has a forever impact. If someone becomes a better communicator, if someone gets better at difficult conversations, and not only like in a business sense does it impact your organization, but by and large, it's probably going to impact the community around you. It's going to impact their home life and their friendship group if they're showing up differently and better. So as a leader, like the reward on that is exponential. And now they can go and they can train that next person in those skills. And a lot of the things I read about today, like those are going to be the high value skills. And we're actually competing. I think we're actually going backwards in a lot of those skills. So the need is even more because people are spending so much time interfacing with screens, whether it's, gaming or social media. All of these things are taking us away from those human interactions. And we see this where sometimes we'll hire young people and just eye contact.
Oh, yeah.
And basic civil discourse you can tell it's painful. Like it's actually hard for them because it's not a skill they've learned. So like some of the basic levels aren't even there. But so there's a lot of opportunity, I think, to help people level up and work on those EQ. And that then they can just continue to replicate that both in your organization and out of it. And, from a satisfaction of what you get to do as a leader, like to me, there's nothing greater than that. And whatever's going to get taken over tactically by technology, like that's happening no matter what. You're not stopping it. So really pouring into that component, because who knows where it goes, but I don't see the machines ever being able to replicate human interaction the way that two humans can do it together. So
yeah, face to face, and that's good for their families too, I would imagine, not just for what they do professionally at work, but also for knowing how to talk to their spouse about conflict, and instead of having ChatGPT write a repair letter, which a lot of people do, and they write those hard emails, they have ChatGPT write it and they send it out, and there's no, I think the skill that will be lost is this like churn inside the human soul of like making it hard for yourself.
Yep.
When the option is easy, choosing hard is going to be like a reflection of character, because you don't have to choose the hard. You can make it easier.
Well, and then also like look at what conflict does to a person. It can lead to immense growth.
Oh, yeah.
If you're just kind of taking the shortcut, at what point are you actually going to experience that growth if you've got a handout on how to resolve that conflict? If it's from from a chatbot that is telling you, oh, this based off of philosophers from, the last 1,000 years and based off of preferences that you've told me, I think this might be the best solution. Where's the problem solving? What the internal problem solving?
Yeah.
So, it's also too with any good story, any good movie you watch has that conflict that the main character goes through. And it's so necessary for that growth to be able to get to the next step and not have to really experience that same conflict again.
Right.
Because if people are just looking for these handouts of, I don't want to deal with this email that is uncomfortable, I'm just going to have ChatGPT do it. They're not facing the real issue,
AI is so affirming. There is a term called AI psychosis, which is this idea that AI is so affirming that it will actually create delusions inside of people that their ideas and their concepts are life-changing, and that no one else has these ideas. And AI gives you this capability. And if you're not careful, you can start to feel really good on what AI tells you about your ideas, about your perspectives.
Yeah.
You can type in and say, I had this argument with my wife. I think my perspective is right, hers is wrong. And it'll give you an affirming response. It will be like, you're probably, you have some great thoughts there and you have some good ideas.
Yeah. Now you're stuck in an echo chamber, kind of like what social media in a lot of ways has done.
There's this story of this man, and it was something where he was like kind of like a hobbyist mathematician scientist, and he was talking with ChatGPT, or I think it was Claude, I can't remember, and he felt like he was solving this amazing equation and like world phenomenon because the AI kept encouraging it, kept letting him go down this rabbit hole, because that's what it's built to do. It's built to like encourage the user, affirm, and then and then he showed it, and it was something like he was completely embarrassed, completely proved wrong. Everything was not correct, but he felt like he was doing something so incredible, and it ended up kind of blowing up in his face,
And you brought up the idea of fitness in our conversation before this, and I want to go back to that, because that to me is one of those things where if you want a reward, you have to put in hard work and feel pain first.
Yep.
Yeah.
So the dopamine hit that I get when I work out, it comes through the pain, but the reward, I like exercise because the reward is actually pretty fast. You feel it pretty quick. So especially for like, some of my kids, that they need that reward system hit fast to be able to see the benefit in it. Exercise is great for that. It's not this long journey to then get the reward. It's pretty immediate. How do you see exercise as a place of formation in your character and in who you show up as a person?
Yeah, I mean, like what you said, because ultimately that for me creates, I don't know if stability is quite the right word, but like it stabilizes me because I'm getting that. It's something I have control over. I feel accomplished because I did it. And some of that's kind of the mental, emotional part of it. And then there's a physiological piece to that as well, which is great to me that you get both, because it's like physiologically your body is really happy, like, hey, we did this, when you're on the backside of it. But I also can feel good about myself of like, I set out to stay disciplined to, hit the 5 times a week that I wanted to, or the 4 times a week, whatever it is. So I'm kind of winning twice there. But it also reinforces that idea. And I know, Andy, in a lot of your work, you talk a lot about this. And this to me ties to that whole like leaning into EQ, hard conversations, being a good communicator. When you get through those hard things, there's a lot of joy and satisfaction on the other side of that you cannot feel if you don't go through the hard. If you don't go through the suck, like you don't get that. And so what you get for me, what I get out of fitness is like, I'm getting that reinforcement that is a cycle that's really important, because that for me now is easy. It's a little bit rhythmic. I love doing it. I do it with friends. Like there's a lot about it that I enjoy, but it reinforces the idea that if I go through hard things, I'm going to feel that sense of achievement, get that joy on the backside in categories where, like difficult conversations, where that's a real struggle for me. But I'm getting that reinforcement that it's worth it, because I know that that's how the cycle works. In all hard things, when you get through it, immense gratitude that you feel, and an accomplishment in that.
There's this idea where, all right, so we've all experienced a pretty good pump when working out, right? Where you are lifting great and maybe a little bit more than you were the last week or the week before.
Yeah.
And then also you physically look different during this pump. But what's interesting about it is it's called like chasing the pump, where you'll look a certain way or feel a certain way. And it's like a preview of, hey, if you keep this up, this is what you're going to look like. Or this is what you're going to feel like.
It's like a vision of the future.
But the thing is you can never reach the pump, because once you get to that point, your pump then is even further.
Right. It keeps leveling up.
It just keeps leveling up. So it's like this interesting kind of drive, which I wonder if it's just like, I wonder if God built it that way, you know, because it's like, you're never going to achieve this, but you always get a preview of what you could be. And it's like, well, how do you apply that to your life of like, you're chasing this with your work, with family, with whatever it might be, and you get little previews of that. And then when you finally get there, there's previews of what else could be, you know?
Right.
And then, but if you just sit on your butt and do nothing, you're never going to get a preview of it. You're never going to experience what it could be.
Yeah, these are interesting.
Well, I think that ties back to that contentment idea, right? Because it does tee up like, I want to do more in any domain, but it's that stop of, and I'm happy with what just happened. I have joy and satisfaction in where I've gotten to in this moment. But it doesn't, like we were talking about earlier, it doesn't stop you from continuing to drive and move forward. If anything, I think that reflection actually helps reinforce like, no, I want to go again. I want to do whatever this challenge is. I want to continue to pursue it, whether it's work or it's working on relationships, working out, whatever that is. But I think kind of what you're talking about ties into that, because that's that reflective moment of like, yeah, that was good. I'm going to do it again because I liked it and I want to continue to advance and grow.
Yeah.
But I do think I do think it's important to answer the question, what is enough, in a lot of capacities in life. And most people do not know the answer to what enough looks like. And when you define what is enough, you create a box around a process where you don't have to go more and you can say stop. And I think when we don't know, what is enough, we start chasing for the dopamine hit over and over and over again. And it really bleeds into, other priorities. I think we really have to step back and answer that question.
All right. Last question for you. It's interesting, as I get older, I'm 40 right now. I've noticed that my friends have parents who are, old, like very much older, and like having things like dementia, or just they're not as sharp. Their memories are fading quite a bit. And even my own mother, she's like kind of getting the beginning stages of that. And so a question for you, and I've been kind of thinking a lot about this myself. As we get older and, our memories start to get a little blurry, a little fuzzy, what is a memory that you have, could be about anything, a memory that you have that you just hope never lose, that we can always hold on to? And it could be anything. It could be a kid. It could be with your spouse. It could be with when you were a kid. It could be when you were by yourself. Anything that you're just like, man, I just hope I never forget this.
That's a challenge.
Yeah.
That's a tough question. I like that. And I'm pretty convinced that I will have some serious memory fade. I'm already feeling it. It's hard for me to narrow it to one. I'll give one, but it's more of an idea for me. And I have multiple memories of times where it's me, my wife, and my children, and we're just kind of like in that flow state of like beautiful relationship, love abounding, joy. And for like the biggest example I can think of that, and I hope I hold on to this memory. We we went on a trip to Peru last year, earlier in the year, and it was like the front half of it was some mission work, and then the back half was like some adventuring in the rainforest. And what I love about it when we talk about it as a family today is when we were in the rainforest, it was gnarly. Like there's no windows on the like this little casita thing we're staying in. Like that bugs and animals, like everything's coming into the room. Like we're not sleeping, and we all have a super positive association with that trip. The whole thing, including the time in the rainforest, and then the time when we were serving, we were helping run a vacation Bible school. But it's that like collective time together. So we were forming memories it was a very new experience. We'd never been to the country, and really everything we were doing was new, right? So like, I think when I think about what are the things I want to remember, it's like those experiences together as a family where we were bonding and we were growing and we were challenging each other. And we were also just very like carefree. I wasn't working and the kids weren't in school and there's no craziness of our sports and activities and all of this. We could just be present, and it was all topped off by the fact that we got to serve, and then we got to go check out some really cool parts of God's creation. So those kind of memories for me, I really want to hold those, because that to me is what forms how our relationships continue to grow and flourish as a family. And that happens in other domains, but for me, it's really important with my wife Natalie and the kids. So for now, I'm gonna stay that Peru trip, but hopefully other instances of that where, life is meaningful but carefree enough that it's just like that sweet spot. So
that's great, man. All right. Well, I appreciate you being here and chatting with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys.